Welcome to more World of Warplanes content from the Noble Q, and in this video I'm going to talk about alternative battle tactics featuring the BF-110B as a low-tier aircraft. Hello there, and here we are on the tarmac outside my hangar, and we're looking at the BF-110B, the Tier 4 German Heavy. What I'm going to say straight away is this is not a full review video of this aircraft. What this video is about is alternative tactics. So we're not going to tarry here, and there isn't going to be a spreadsheet following this section either, comparing the aircraft to the other Tier 4 Heavies. We're going to get straight into a discussion of tactics on the battle that you're going to see in this video. The map for the forthcoming battle is Asian Border. It's the point of no return variant, which is a 5-sector map, and the sectors are laid out in the common pattern of 5 spots of a die. In the centre we have a garrison, strategically not that important, but of tactical significance because it provides easy access to all the other sectors. On one axis about that garrison there are a pair of military bases, one near each spawn, and these are the strategically important sectors because they launch rocket strikes against other sectors, and they will flip them to you provided your team doesn't die on those sectors, which of course they often do. And then on the other axis we have a pair of make-weight garrisons. Now, the conservative way to win this battle is to try and hold the central garrison for longer than the enemy, your local garrison, and above all, the military base. However, that can lead to what I would call battles where the element of chance is quite high. So there is an alternative strategy, but it is quite a difficult one to employ. I'm going to talk about that after I've looked at the order of battle. If we look at the order of battle, we can see that I'm bottom tier in my BF-110B. I've got 3 other tier 4s with me, a bomber, an I-17, a low-level fighter, a strong one, and then a high-level BF-109B, which isn't specialised. And we also have the 1 tier 5 BF-109E, also not specialised. And against this, the enemy has a pair of tier 5s. Critically, they've got a P-38F Lightning. There's also an XFL-1, which is a really hard-hitting aircraft. And then they also have 3 Tier 4 aircraft, a Bisha 2 Grand Attacker, Bristol 146, quite a good fighter when specialised, one of them isn't, and then there's another Bristol 146, which is. Now, what tends to happen is that both teams flood towards their military base, understandably, this is the important sector, and having captured it, which generally they do quite quickly, there is then a big bun fight over the garrison, and often this is the entirety of the battle for many players. They spend their entire time trying to take this garrison off, for their side, and effectively what tends to happen is that very few aircraft make it to the opposition military bases, but these are key to winning the battle. Now, having looked at that order of battle, I realised that I could be in a lot of trouble if I went and did the conservative thing of taking our military base and then trying to perhaps help take this garrison and then getting to this military base, because I was quite likely to run into a far superior Tier 5 Heavy. And I've often noticed on this map that very few aircraft in a balanced battle tend to make it to the enemy military base simply because this space is always contested. So what I decided to do was something quite different. I took the non-obvious choice of going to our garrison first, because I knew that if I took that, that would help us win the battle by simply possessing a sector, but then it gave me what I hoped would be a clear flight path to this military base, and there I could perhaps shoot down both of the enemy air defence aircraft, and also use the 2 bombs that the BF-110B has to take out ground targets, and perhaps flip this base unexpectedly to my team. This strategy won't always work in every aircraft that you've got. For instance, if you're in the I-17, that's a difficult one to pull off. You might be better doing the conservative thing of perhaps helping at the military base, then trying to secure this garrison and possibly go off and take this garrison, because the I-17 doesn't have altitude performance, and of course military bases are only defended by high-level air defence aircraft, the heavies. And talking more generally, not every map will lend itself to an alternative tactic, such as the one I've just described, particularly at low tiers, but I can tell you that as you start advancing up the tiers, these sorts of considerations become more and more relevant. All the way up to, for instance, if you get to tier 10 and you're flying the Hawker Hunter, It's a really good idea to use an alternative tactic and surprise the enemy by seizing their important sectors before they've managed to take them. So bear that in mind. As we go into this battle, let me mention that it's a natively recorded replay file. It's not one of World of Warplanes replay files, therefore the reticle will be accurately aimed. That's the good news. However, the movement may be a little bit jerky during the battle. You saw me examining the order of battle carefully there and just confirming my choice, and here we go. We're going off following the alternative tactic that I've just described in the strategy section, and we're heading towards the garrison. And I no doubt that some of my team might have been cursing me at this point. So we shouldn't encounter our opposition aircraft here, and as you can see we've got a couple of multi-rolls coming with me, so it should be an easy enough capture. And this of course is not my primary objective. Line up the first air defence heavy, the second one is a long way away from him and allows me to focus him as my second target. Down he goes, we've got both of them. Just need one more. Conveniently there's a boomerang directly below me in a low energy configuration. It's an easy kill. We have our garrison. And unsurprisingly we've also got our military base. But then the enemy has got theirs as well, and that's pretty usual on this particular map. What isn't usual is the fact that I now, unless I'm unlucky, should have a clear path to the enemy military base, and maybe, assuming that they've left that military base, which is usually the case, everybody floods towards the centre, I might be able to do some good work here. So I gain altitude, so I ready myself to take on the heavies. As you can see, both military bases are firing at the centre. That's where that bun fight that I mentioned in the strategy section is taking place. At this point I spot what turned out to be the enemy Bisha 2, that's the human ground attacker. I'm disciplined, I ignore him. My objective is to try and take this military base if I can, because that's the surprise move and potentially the game-winning move. Now, as it happens, the bun fight has gone in favour of my team in the centre, but it's also quite likely that the enemy will at some point take that centre back, often quite quickly. That sector tends to swap hands on this particular map quite a lot. And now I've reached the enemy military base, and I'm lucky. I'm not surprised, but I am lucky to find that there are no defenders other than the air defence aircraft to be seen. So I've taken the first one down. Now I'm sizing up the second one. It takes a little bit longer to knock these down because they're tier 5s in theory. And I'm a tier 4, down that goes, and now I've got the option of using bombs. So what I'm going to do is try and take out a couple of gun emplacements, and if I'm lucky I'll be able to shoot down some tents as well for a third target and take this military base. And here's my first target. Decent bombs on the BF-110B. I drop it. I spot this target here and I decide not to drop a bomb on it because I realise I can probably finish it off with my guns. That would be the third target that I need to flip this base. So I go for a full health one. Drop the bomb there, immediately climb to try and avoid being damaged by my own bomb. And at this point, although I had in mind the third ground target, I find that there's an enemy defender. And fortunately for me, he flies straight at me. I'm able to kill him without losing my aircraft, and we have the enemy's military base. And now we are in a strategically very strong position. So the Bristol 146 is focused entirely on the aircraft in front of him, reacts too late to the fact that I'm shooting him. With some careful movement I'm able to put him down, and now we have both military bases firing at the enemy sectors, and that is a very uncomfortable position for the enemy to be in. Now the ground attacker that went to the garrison is still alive. I'm low health, so I don't really want to be taking on multiple targets here. That's an ideal target, and if it secures keeps the garrison for us, of course, that's a few more points towards the victory. And the military bases have already done their work. The enemy's local garrison is now in our possession, and basically the enemy now has to try and take everything bar the centre to win this game. See the Bisha? And we now have achieved air supremacy. And this principally, I would say, quite baldly, is because of the tactic that I adopted and the surprise capture of the enemy's military base. Bisha tries to swing towards me. He does actually get my engine. I put a lot of shots into him though, and it should be an easy kill from here. And in fact he's destroyed by either AA or one of the air defence aircraft before I can finish him off. And we have virtually won this battle already. Thank you, announcer, for confirming what I just said. So it's back to the military base to see if I can do a little bit more work there, but now we're in farming mode. The game should be well won. I'm a little bit hesitant to say it's definitely won until the battle's actually ended. How many of us have had battles where we've had 4 sectors to 1 up, or even superiority, and suddenly, somehow, the enemy flips all of the sectors within the space of 30 seconds? But this one looks good, and indeed, it is. First place, 6,500 personal points. Not very good. And there's another important point. We'll talk about that in the summary at the end. Let's quickly review the outcome of this battle, and as we can see, it's a 1 chevron battle or a grade 5 heavy fighter that's grossed 44,359 credits, or silver if you prefer, of which about 15,000 came from the premium account bonus, as you can see there. As far as expenses were concerned, the aircraft wasn't shot down, so there were no repair costs, and I was using prepaid consumables, so no costs in this battle for those either. The next 2 figures are inflated by me running boosters, 4,309 experience, of the base being 1,214, premium account bonus producing 607, and then the rest coming from those boosters and other things like liveries. 863 experience, similar sort of story. 185 is the base figure, 30 for the premium account bonus, and then the boosters have added in 645. Personal score tab. One of the class-specific missions wasn't even started. I didn't destroy that attack aircraft over the garrison. Something else finished it off, so no progress there whatsoever. 260 capture points, 3/5 done, and 6 aerial targets destroyed, just 2/5 done, so hence the single chevron. 6,500 personal points. Low personal points, high impact in the battle. Remember that. 2 sectors captured, 6 aerial targets destroyed, 1,463 damage to aerial targets. No expenses here because I didn't lose the aircraft. The 260 capture points was entirely for attacking sectors. 2 ground targets destroyed, both at the military base, producing 4,280 damage. Team score tab. First on the team by personal points, equal first by chevrons, would have been second on the enemy team. The key point about this battle is not the personal points. High personal points does not guarantee victory. Being effective about your sectors and what you do in the battle does, and sometimes that produces a low personal points tally like this, and that's the moral of this story. That brings me to the final part of this video, and there are 2 key points I'd like to emphasise. The first is that as you go through your journey in World of Warplanes, you'll recognise that on certain maps, with certain orders of battle, particularly if you're low tier, and depending on the aircraft that you're flying, it's wise to develop an alternative tactic to use instead of the obvious one, where you feel that you might be outclassed by the planes on the enemy team, and we've just seen an example of that in this video. The second point I'd like to emphasise is that high personal points does not necessarily tally with game-winning tactics. You can amass personal points when you're not doing critical work, that is outside of sectors, and I'll give you the example of an FW-57 that I've seen recently amass 30,000 personal points by defending a central repair base and losing the game because our team held the peripheral sectors for longer than his team did. Well, I hope you found that useful. And if you did, that you'll come and see my future content. But until then, this is a Noble Q signing out.